So the bench is a bit crowded today because we've got a lot going on. I guess the primary subject of the video is going to be another look at the Frankford Arsenal M-Press. And I want to share some things that I learned from your comments about problems I didn't pick up and a few fixes to some issues most people experience with the press. I also want to load 4 more different cartridges on the press just to try out some bigger stuff. You know, last video we kept it to 223. But today we're going to load some bigger stuff and some stuff with some weird rims and such so we can test out the universal shell holder a little bit more. So the first cartridge we're testing is 30-06 in my M1 Garand, or I'm sorry, M1 Lapois, whatever you call it. The second is going to be 7.5 by 55 Swiss, and we're going to shoot that in my K31. The third cartridge is 7.62 by 54R that will shoot in my Russian Mosin. And we'll shoot 7.62 by 39 in my Chinese SKS. Now it just so happens with these 4 different cartridges, the dies I have for them, 2 of them are Redding. So I have Redding dies for 30-06 and 7.62 by 39, and the other 2 are Lee for 7.5 by 55 Swiss and 7.62 by 54R. Now this is important because in our last couple videos with 223, in that cartridge we've got a Redding die that's giving us nothing but problems and poor concentricity numbers, while the Lee die is doing great. So today I want to check our loaded rounds for concentricity and see if we spot any trends between the Lee and the Redding dies. And our main concern over in 223, it's been sizing die related. So for seating the bullets, so we're using the same die on all of the cartridges, I want to use this Frankford Arsenal universal bullet seating die. So that's the 4th topic of the video. So it should be fun, trying some new things. Now the bullet for today is going to be the 150 grain Hornady SST. This is a 308 diameter bullet, which is perfect for our 30-06 M1 Garand and our Swiss K31. But my Russian Mosin that we're shooting 7.62 by 54R with, we've already tested in the past and found that it likes 311 and 312 diameter bullets. And in my SKS, we've never even tried a 308 bullet. So we might see some ugly groups with the Mosin and the SKS. But that's okay. I mean, you know, our testing before, the Mosin doesn't shoot 308 bullets bad. I mean, it's not awful. And so far with the SKS, we haven't really found anything it'll shoot. So groups would probably be awful regardless. But the main reason why I'm doing this is both of these die kits, one of them Redding for 7.62 by 39 and the Lee for 7.62 by 54R, they both have expander balls for 308 bullets. And I don't want to use a separate expanding mandrel to open them up for the larger bullets because I don't want to mess up kind of our die comparison. I want to use the integrated expander ball in all of the dies. So that's why I'm shooting the 308 bullet, just so the playing field is level. Now for load data, I just cracked open the Hornady. Manual and picked some middle of the road charges. The Hornady manual is great with the milsurps stuff because like there's a special set of load data for the M1 Garand. There's 7.62 by 39 data that was tested in the SKS. The 54R data is from a Mosin. You get the idea. So lots of good data in here, and this is the primary source. I did go ahead and check the powder manufacturers. See, Hodgdon had data. Yeah, Hodgdon had H4895 data, but they didn't have the IMR 3031 data for 7.62 by 39. But I feel okay with it. My backup data source for the 30-06 was the Vitavori website. They had data with N135 with several Lapua bullets or Garand bullets, however you say it. So that's the source of my load data for today. Be sure to double check me. So does that cover it? A little bit scatterbrained here, a lot going on. I think we should start by talking through a couple issues with the press and a couple of modifications I made. So down here on the carriage, you know, this is the bottom part of the press where the shell holder is, you'll notice some new janky looking silver hardware at 3 of the points. Well, a guy named Harold made a comment on the last video that said he had made a video showing a couple modifications to fix some problems with this press. I went over and had a look and it was an excellent video. If you own this press, you definitely need to go watch it. I'll have a link in the description and a pinned comment. But the biggest thing for me was just the size of these little screws that hold this black plate on. They are tiny. They are short and tiny, and it makes no sense whatsoever. There's all sorts of room for bigger, beefier screws. So what I've done is I tore this apart, drilled out 3 of the holes, and tapped them for larger hardware. So here's the original screw next to what I put in there. Now I was going to do all 5, but the last hole I tapped is actually this guy right here. It went a little bit harder than I thought it should have. So I don't know if my tap is getting dull or if I'm just being paranoid. But once I finished that one, I was like, you know what? I don't want to break this tap off. It was a crappy little auto parts store sort of tap. So I figured I would just stop while I'm ahead. So I've got 3 nice big screws in there and still have 2 of the smaller ones. So once I get a better tap, I'm going to finish this off and get this plate mounted the way it should be, because there's a lot of force put on this plate. And if you go back to the last video and look a little bit closer, these 2 screws on the left were coming loose. So that's one of the big things in Harold's video is drilling and tapping these. The other is getting these universal shell holder rotating things to work more smoothly. So these are obviously, like circular spinny things that ride down inside of a machined out circular part, and they don't fit properly. They need cleaned up with a file or a Dremel or a whatever to rotate smoothly. Now mine, I took them out, had a look. I made sure both sides were rotating nice and free, and mine were fine. I didn't really have to do any cleanup. But I definitely heard from people, saying that these were extremely difficult to rotate on their press. So if yours are a little bit funky, you need to get in there and clean that up, because this square part is just pressed in to the silver round part. So I guess what had happened on Harold's is the silver disc kind of got in one of its rough spots where it was bound up, and this stripped out. So he's turning this and it's no longer rotating that. So that's the risk if you keep using it. If yours turns really rough and you keep using it, you might end up stripping that out. All right, so here's the top near the light switch. These big rubber things, you just pry them off. They're glued down, I guess. But big hex key screw in here. Takes one of these behemoths. Luckily, I had one laying around. It is 10 millimeter. So there's one at the top, and there's also one at the bottom of the press. And whenever I was trying to put mine back together, one of them was rotating. I had to remove my press from my quick change plate to get access. Luckily, I was able to get it tight, and I only had one of these. I didn't have a second 10 millimeter wrench handy, but luckily, I was able to get it tight, and I think everything's back together the way it should be. Now, a couple things that were brought up regarding the die block. Apparently, this set screw, which I pulled out and showed in the last video, just a brass set screw, is awful. It will not hold your die, and you'll constantly be trying to tighten it back up. You'll lose your settings. Multiple people mentioned the die blocks being a pain in the butt. Somebody mentioned that you could stack 2. Yeah, I think he said he stacked 2 of them in here. Probably, okay, on the threading of the die. Hold on one second. So maybe like something like this. Hold on, not quite. Let's go one more rotation. Nope, still not there. There it is. All right, so that's a couple standard lock rings. I guess you could almost... Yeah, maybe something like that. If this has been driving you crazy, I think some people mentioned they don't even use the press anymore because this was such a frustration. This was, this was one guy's solution. It'd be a pain in the butt, but it would work, I think. Now, another very good point that was brought up by Bolt Action Reloading and some others, I believe, is the critical surfaces, I guess you might call it in here. The top here, and then the bottom right there. Like, that's not machined. Looks like just, powder coat on top of, the standard cast texture. So if you're looking for a major difference between the Forster coax and this Frankford Arsenal M-Press, that's the easy one. This is machined in the coax, and you'd think that would have to provide better, more consistent alignment instead of this, these rough surfaces that your die block is going to, sit up against. Because it's critical in both directions, right? So we have upward die pressure during bullet seating or the upstroke in sizing, and then on the way back down, whenever we're pulling through an expander ball or just pulling the case out in general, you have that downward pressure. It's also another reason why, hang on, my camera's in the way. All right, so back to what I was calling carriage tilt in the last video, where this entire part, this is where our shell holder's right here, and it's coming up right at the last bit of the stroke. Whenever the handle touches the carriage, there's that little bit of slop in that direction. So I got to thinking about that slop, and during a process where our case is coming up for sizing or bullet seating, and we've got downward pressure toward the bottom, I would assume that that tilt is there for the whole ride. just due to the forces involved. Does that make any sense? And then on the downstroke, whenever, let's say we're pulling a case mouth out of an expander or pulling an expander ball through a case mouth, it's going to want to tilt the other direction. See, I'm just not seeing how this wouldn't have some sort of negative effect. I don't know. I think this is something minor. I don't think it's going to matter to most average reloaders, but if you've decided to buy, either this or the Forster coax, I guess that's one more reason to spend the extra money. I don't know. Let me get this thing mounted. So apparently if we set our, let's see, so that one's on small right now. Let's rotate it around to large. And the other one's already on large. Okay, apparently we can take a standard shell holder. I wonder if it'd be, I probably should remove that. Yeah, like this little, yeah, this little thing right here just screws right out. So now let's try it. Let's kind of put it in there manually and see if it closes. How about that? Just trying to see how much give and play it had. Yeah, that seems to be a really good grip. I want to use the built-in shell holders for today's test, but let me grab some 223. Let's size some brass real quick with this setup. Camera's a little crooked, isn't it? So the coolest thing about this setup is that if I grab this Mighty Armory die that we weren't able to use last time because it bulges out, well now the case is sitting up a good bit higher. So I'll bet you money we can screw this down to the shell holder no problem now without having that press interference. How about that? We got a good little ways to spare. Got some of those pieces of 223 from last week. That I'd used to set up dies. So let's see. Man, that shell holder. Just looking to see if okay, at the beginning of the downstroke, if it was doing anything weird. And it's definitely not. Like this is a big, I think the gentleman mentioned specifically that this setup allowed him to use his Forster ultramicrometer seating die. Yeah, this guy right here, it's not too tall. It clears the handle even in this sort of setup. Now, another really cool thing about this sort of setup is if you're just decapping, you don't have to drop the carriage all the way down. Remember the dingus there is what opens up the integrated shell holder. So for quick functions, this would be a really big time save. If you're used to not dropping your ram all the way. I was trying to see if I could kind of move the shell holder out of alignment, and you can just a little bit, but there's not much room to get it out of whack there. And any little bit that's there should be, easily compensated by the floating die setup, I would think. So yeah, you guys let me know if there's any downside to this I'm not seeing, because it seems to fix at least a good number of your die compatibility problems. All right, last one. Good deal. Oh, I never really completed the thought earlier. Whenever I was talking about, drilling and tapping for better hardware on this plate, well, whenever you're sizing brass, and you get one stuck, or if it's difficult, well, that force from the shell holder or the integrated shell holders is all held by this plate. And I guess that's the experience that Harold had that led to his video. He got a stuck case, and instead of like normal, you get a stuck case, the rim rips off of the case head by the shell holder. Well, instead of that happening, this whole metal plate popped the screws, and he had a big mess on his hands. Put my little dingus back in place. Or actually, no, I should probably remove the shell holder first, because it was kind of bound up in there, wasn't it? So I might not be able to get it out of there with this thing in there. Check that again, see if I can. Yeah, you can definitely get it in there with the dingus in place, but I think every time you drop it, it's going to push the shell holder over, and it's actually tilting just a little bit. So I think removing that is going to be the better way to use it. All right, I think that mainly covers, let me check my notes. Yeah, I think that's what I wanted to talk about. Guess I can pull out my 30-06 die and we can get started. All right, according to the instructions, the 308 shell holder position, there it is, so they both say 308. That's what we're going to use for 30-06 and 7.5 by 55 Swiss. But once we get to the big rim that is on 7.62 by 54R, we're just going to play around with it and see what works. And the little 7.62 by 39 might be a problem as well, because if you look at the case head rim diameters that they list, there's a gap. Yeah, 223 maxes out at 0.425, 308 starts at 470. So 425 to 470 is no man's land, and that's where 7.62 by 39, 6.5 Grindle, 6mm arc, they all land right in the middle of that gap. So it's good we've got the fallback of using the standard shell holder. And I just checked the instructions again to see if that was like a documented feature, and it's not in there, but it definitely seemed to work well. I'm gonna start out with my universal decapping die. Got this Mighty Armory decapping die. I wanna pop the primers out of a couple pieces of this 30-06. And I guess I need my primer catching tray. And let's see if this works. No problem there. All right, that's 4 pieces. That should be enough. Now, the reason I wanted the primers out is if you have any primer cratering whatsoever, or if you've got any, hump there, whenever you go to use a headspace comparator, when setting up your sizing die, it's going to mess up your readings. So at least for, getting my initial starting measurement, I don't want a primer to be in the way. So that's what that was all about. All right, here's our Reading full-length die. And we know from the last video that setting dies on this press is a little bit weird and takes some experimenting. I'm going to put on a little Imperial sizing die wax and a little bit inside the neck as well. This is once fired brass that was fired in my gun. It's the HXP surplus ammo that I bought from the CMP whenever I bought my rifle. Still that batch of brass. So, all right, let's try first one here. So it looks like my starting headspace number is 2.002. So we'll shoot for 2 or 1.999. This first piece, we haven't hit the shoulder yet. It actually got a little bit longer. All right, that was a pretty big adjustment. I didn't have it down quite as far as I thought I did. Still not there. Another pretty big adjustment. This has got to be close. Finally, 1.999. Run the other two back through, Let's see what I get. Which actually what I should probably do is try out this lock ring that everybody mentioned sucking really bad. If I can find the right Allen wrench. I think I just stripped it. Or stripped out the head. Maybe a little. Well, it's on there nice and tight. Let's see if everything gets in alignment and stays aligned from piece to piece here. Here's the next one. Kinda. All right, let's see if this one aligns itself. No, not quite. All right, now I'm getting to the pieces that I didn't decap. Make sure I got my decapping pin low enough, hopefully. Looks good. All right, this is our last piece of 30-06. Now, I think I figured out something here with the alignment. I'm gonna need to move my camera to show you, I think. This 30-06 in particular has got a bunch of slop in this direction. You know, a fair amount in that direction as well, but it seems to like teeter forward and back pretty easy. I think it's the relationship of like the diameter of the plate piece and the actual diameter of the rim just being off a little bit. So yeah, almost all of them here I've had to guide it in just a little bit, but once it's in there, it's okay. And I've been getting consistent headspace numbers, and that one looks perfect as well. So now the question with this die in here, as tight as I could get it until I pretty much stripped out the head, like can we turn? Yeah, I can definitely turn that in that die block, no problem. I could see that being insanely frustrating. See if I can get my, she's stripped. I'll try, but that. All right, well, so much for that die block, I guess. Now, I didn't see anybody propose any solutions to the Frankford Arsenal blocks. So if you've got some way that made these work, definitely let us know. Saw some people noticed our annual ladybug infestation is in full force. So you'll see them crawling around all over the place. There's no point in even trying to stop them, man. They're so crazy around here. They get in everybody's house. All right, 30-06 is done. So next we'll do 7.5 by 55 Swiss. And I reckon this one ought to be pretty straightforward. Try it right there. Now these cases are Norma, and these have been cleaned. Yeah, that is a 10 times better fit than 30-06 was. And see, I think it's not only case head diameter, I think it's the design of the rim. Like that 30-06 rim on this brass I'm using is big and wide and spacious. And the 7.5 brass, not so much. So I think that's why we're getting our better fit. Better, easier alignment there as well, it looked like. I think this brass has been sized before. I noticed on the way up, like it aligned well, but yeah, it's hitting the expander ball, so I'm having to take it up and over the expander ball. So yeah, at some point I had sized this and had it ready to go. Now the problem is I've got a K11 and I've got a K31, and like any other two guns, they have different headspace numbers, but it's actually pretty dramatic. So I'm gonna grab my gun real quick and make sure this brass that I just ran through this sizing die fits in the gun. See if I can remember how to run this thing. All right, that brass is going into battery, no problem whatsoever. So that headspace setting, definitely good. All right, I'll bring you guys up close here for 7.62 by 54R. Well, the 308 setting took a little bit of work to get it down in there. Looks like if this does end up fitting the best, looks like a kind of a tilt might be okay. Let's see if that closes. That's not bad. My arm's blocking the light, but I think that's actually good. Let's try large though, just for the heck of it. Okay, that's large. Definitely goes down in there easier. And, I'd say that's pretty close. You know, there's not much of a groove for it to grab. Because I would think, so on the way up, all force put on the brass, or all force of any significance put on the brass, is flat on the case head, right? Same as a shell holder. It's on the way down, you know, where you're kind of having upward force here on the shell holder, that I think this, yeah, well, it's the only time this fitment really comes into play, other than alignment, you know, general alignment when you put it in there, and both of them seem to work about the same. Let me go back to 308. Try this again here. Ah, you all seeing that? So if I just drop it in and then let it do its thing, then I grab it and pull up a little bit, that jaw didn't quite close all the way. See if I can do it without blocking the light. Yeah. Yep, so the large looks like it's going to be the best. Keep turning them the wrong way. All right, there's large. Close it. Now upward, it does the same thing. Okay. I think, you know, so either way is fine. And that little bit of snap there shouldn't matter. And large, just kind of looking at the gap between the two halves. Do I have that on camera? Can you see what the gap right there? It's definitely smaller with the large. So it seems like that would mean more contact with the rim here with the large. Yeah, okay, good. Large it is for 7.62 by 54R. While I've got the camera set up like this, here is 7.62 by 39. That's funny, even the large. Definitely not a good fit, but it does get a hold of it. All right, here is 308. And that I mean, it seems to have pretty good hold of the case. We do have a little bit of a gap there. Yeah, I think it's got the rim where it needs to. So I think it might be okay. Let's switch to small and see what that does. Can't even hardly get it in there. Yeah, that's definitely not good. It doesn't even come close to closing. Huge gap between these two. So 223 here is our last hope. Let's see what it... Yeah, you can get it in there. And that also seems to get a pretty good hold of it. A big gap. Definitely a lot of rim that's not getting grabbed up. Okay, back to 308 for one last look. I think that's it. Not too much gap here on the side between them. And, you know, the radius there seems to fit our case okay. Definitely not good, but I think it's going to be good enough. All right, so I'm going to roll the camera in case anything crazy happens, but otherwise it's just going to be regular sizing like we've already done with the last two. So if I don't have problems, I'll see you when I'm done sizing. If you've watched any of my older 7.62 by 54R videos recently, you've probably been yelling at me. I remembered as soon as I opened the box, but yeah, they were staring right at me. I have both the large bullet decapping and expanding assembly for the Lee die and also the smaller one for 308 bullets. So I took out the big one and put in the small one. There's another godforsaken ladybug. It's going to go down in there and spend the winter or walk on my finger or fly away. Okay, so yeah, thought I'd mention that. So the next step here is to take all of my sized brass. I need to wipe off all of this lube, the 30-06 brass in particular. I'll probably clean out these primer pockets with a little scraper. There we are, there's my Lyman uniformer. Usually does a really nice job of scraping at least some of that junk out of there. And it looks like that might be a little bit deep, some spots it didn't hit. Whatever, you get the idea. I'm gonna wipe off the lube, do other minor cleaning tasks as appropriate. I'm going to trim them to length if they need it. I'm going to chamfer and deburr the case mouth. I'm going to install primers, and I'm going to weigh powder. So this video is already getting long enough. I might check in with you periodically, but going to speed up through a little bit of this stuff. Okay, so I just looked through the instructions for this die. You'll notice it's got all these different size sleeves, and we're going to need the 308. So let's screw the top off of this die. Cap. Yeah, looks like it comes apart like that. Man, I've got this framed awesome, don't I? Well, that's not much better. All right, main thing we are concerned about here are the 3 seating stems. It tells us for 30 caliber to use the shortest stem, but it says that some short cases might need the longer stems, which means we'll start with the shortest stem. All right, first thing into the die body is this in that direction. And I think basically here's the next 3 parts. Okay, so that first part kind of floats there at the bottom and helps align our case, I guess. And then here's our stem. So it says to screw this down until you're at the middle of the adjustment scale. Pretty close to there. And then the scale on the die is supposed to be in thousandths of an inch. All right, let's get it installed. It says to start by screwing the die in 3 turns, about like that. Then we put a case in and raise the ram. Okay, it looks like things are aligned. Then, let me tell you the exact language. Place a bullet into the window of the die and insert a sized case into the shell holder and raise the press ram. Oh, okay, I guess if we drop the case, this will drop and we'll have room to actually just drop the bullet in right there. Okay, there we go. Thread the die body down until resistance is felt. The bullet should barely be seated into the case. Okay, we can do that. All right, so that's all screwed together. Lower the press ram and thread the die body into the press until desired overall cartridge length is achieved. Okay, so they want us to manually, like we know we've just barely seated the bullet and we know we've got a long way to go. So I guess we just drop that, then screw it in a couple turns at a time until we start getting close. Okay, let's see what that gets us. We're actually not that far from the cantilever there. Yeah, not too much farther to go at all. I should have grabbed another die block out of the case, but I didn't. So we'll continue to use this stripped out one. We'll just keep an eye on it. I'm going to go ahead and take this down 25 thousandths. Then we'll take our first overall length measurement and see where it's at right now. Our goal is 3.240, 3.288. So we need to come down 48 thousandths. See if I can dial that in exactly. Okay. Looks right. Hey, perfect. 3.240. Let's try a second one. That one's 3.242, so 2 thousandths longer. That one's 1 thousandth short, so perfect. It's like we're right where we want to be. So the die seems to be doing a pretty good job of straightening out crooked stuff. Like this bullet is just very, very loosely on there, but you see it's kind of crooked. Let's see if we can, yeah, just let the die straighten things out. Felt good. Numbers look good. Okay, I've reset our adjustments, back the die back out. So drop a bullet in there, which I guess you can do that every time, you know, feed your bullets in through the window. Something doesn't feel right. What the heck's going on here? Went to start screwing it down. Yeah, I'm not sure what's hitting what. Something's hitting something. Yeah, right there something's hitting. So I'm going to back off that a little bit. And I'll see if I've got any adjustment. All right, that got us down to the bullet. Yeah, we may have enough adjustment to work with here, but not a lot of extra. Guess I could take a measurement. 2.875 is our target. 3.045, like 170. We may not have the adjustment. No, I think I got it there. Just barely, but I think that might. Something feels weird again. I hit some resistance. What the hell's going on here? Or did I just go way too far? Maybe I. No? I don't understand what's hitting. Like there's still room for the sleeve to move. I just don't like this. I'm going to switch out to the longer seating stem, just the middle size one. All right, so the die block with the stripped out screw can set to the side. So there's a new one. We've got our case where, you know, it's only like 20 thousandths too long. So we should be able to use this to get our die very close. Got the adjustment in about the middle of the range. So if I just screw this down until the bullet gets to the seating stem, we should be pretty darn close. Yeah, I'm hitting the shell holder area. So I'm going to back the die back just a little bit, and then let's go ahead and tighten that down. And at the very least, hopefully that'll hold it enough to where I don't have to hold the die while I'm making adjustments. All right, so now I'm just going to screw it down until I feel something make contact. There it is right there. Go a little bit farther. Seat it. That felt good. 2.878 or 877, just a couple thousandths too long. So I'll move on to the next one before I make any additional adjustments. Felt good. And that one's 2.873. 2.873 again. Perfect. I'll take it. Everything's feeling nice and smooth. I don't feel any alignment problems or anything that makes me, feel like we're not getting a really good seat. They feel pretty consistent. They feel pretty smooth. Okay, with 762 by 54R, we should be good with this same seating stem, I would think. Overall length's about the same. Our target here is 2.825. All right, I think that's far enough down. So I'll lock down the die body, make a little adjustment with the top, see what that gets us. Okay, 2.914. So I need to come down 89 thousandths. Okay, that should be the number right there. And it's perfect. Let's try another one. That one's a little longer at 2.830. I mean, I should be using my bullet comparator. That would give us much better feedback about the consistency of the die. I'll pull it out here in a second. 2.829. All right, I'm going to go down. I'm going to go ahead and go down 5. And run these first 3 back through one more time. Okay, last is 762 by 39. And I just have a feeling we're going to be switching out for that shortest seating stem. Yeah, there's no hope. Pretty much got the die bottomed out and I'm not even touching the bullet yet. And I just dumped powder everywhere. Well, crap. Should have taken the case off the press and put it back in its loading block where it belonged. But I didn't. Oh, I said we were going to switch to a shorter stem, right? No, we're switching to the longest stem. So this is the longest one. Okay, hopefully this will get us where we need to be. No contact yet. Yeah, we're just running out of room there. I don't want to get the die too low and start hitting the shell holder. So we'll just lock it down right here. And yeah, just barely moved it and we've just made contact with the bullet. So I'm going to drop the ram. And we got a long way to go. So there's about 100 thousandths. And now we can get a measurement. Our target is 2.2 and we're at 2.458, so 258 thousandths. There's 100, 258. We're just about out of adjustment again. I'm gonna go past a little bit just to make sure. Yeah, it looks like still got some travel to work with. Good. Let's see what that gets us. It gets us something feeling weird. That felt weird. I think this is a compressed load. Maybe that's what I'm feeling. I think that's what it was. Yeah, and it's at 2.220, so I'm about 20 thousandths long. But I think it's that compressed load that's causing our problems. Try the next one. See if the numbers are similar. Yep, 2.226. All right, I'm going to try and go down. See what we got left. Yeah, I think we're okay. There's 20 thousandths. .208, 2.208. I might just leave it here. 2.208. Yeah, that's fine. A little bit long. I like the feel of the press. Like I think, like it feels very smooth, and then I'm feeling, yeah, I'm feeling the load start to compress in a way that I've just never got that sort of feedback from a press before. And it's in a good way. It's very weird. Trying to reconcile what's going on here, because like this press has never felt underpowered. You know, the sizing operation where we're doing the most work, it's always felt like I had plenty of leverage. But then here during the seating operation, it seems like I have a good level of feel. Yeah, I don't even know how to articulate what is going through my brain right now. All right, here's the last one that's still got powder in the case. So I need to crack open the can of powder, weigh that charge again, and get that one done. So once I finish that, I'm going to put these on the concentricity gauge, and then we'll have a quick chat about the results. So I was a little bit shocked by these numbers, but I think I have an explanation. So 30-06, 7.5 by 55, and 7.62 by 54R all had excellent average runouts. 1.6, 2.1, and 1.7. Outstanding. And there weren't any numbers worse than 4 with those 3 dies. But the Reading die for 7.62 by 39, we've got an average of 4.3. We had 2 different rounds that had 6 thousandths of runout, and none of them had less than 3. I think it's because these are compressed loads. I don't think it has anything to do at all with the die. I think it's because of the compressed load. So we're definitely going to have to test that in a future video. Compressed versus uncompressed, its effects on runout, and then its effects on paper. And an SKS that shoots like 5-inch groups, probably not the best platform for that sort of test. Interesting stuff though. All right, I think that's pretty much it. We ready for the range? I think we're ready. Let's play around with a new camera angle today. We'll see how it works out. You guys let me know what you think. Our target is at 100 yards, and we've got the shot marker electronic target system running. That's the NRA SR1 target face, and that's what I've got hanging on the target. So I'm shooting at the same thing that you're looking at. I did hang the target a bit low in my target frame. It's not going to be such a big deal here with the Garand, but when we get to the Swiss gun, it likes to shoot really, really high, and we can adjust for that with the shot marker system. So we're going to start with 30-06 and my M1 Garand. I bought this one several years back from the civilian marksmanship program. As far as I know, they're still available today. It's a Springfield action. I think it's a pretty common rifle. The CMP had put a new stock on it, and it's in overall, really good condition. So I doubt it's got much battle history, but it's pretty awesome. I'm happy to own it, and it shoots really, really well. The sights on the M1 Garand, you got a peep sight back here, and the sight radius, the distance from the back sight to the front, is about as long as you could possibly get it, which makes things easier. A lot of the other guns with the front sight up here, I have a much more difficult time with. So let's see, I already mentioned the target's at 100 yards, right? So we got the lab radar. You'll probably see some velocities come in there. I did write down from the Hornady manual what sort of velocities we should expect. This should be at right around 2,600 feet per second with 45 grains of N135. Pretty sure this is a new combo. I don't think we've shot this with the Garand. I had the Garand torn apart for so long because these new CMP stocks go together crazy tight, and so I wanted to work on the fitment just a little bit, but also wanted to get a good finish on it. So I sanded the stock and put some tung oil on it. And I got all that done and just never really kind of put the gun back together because it was always like, one more coat, one more sanding. And then all of a sudden you've had the gun apart for a year. A fine viewer named Jeff had sent me some of these 5-round in-block clips. So the standard in-block clip for the M1 Garand holds 8 rounds, which is a little bit awkward for just having fun on the range. So 5 rounds is all these hold, and operation should be the same as far as I know. Which, speaking of operating, I need to see if I can remember how to do that. Once it's pulled back to lock, try and do it with my left hand. That way you guys can see better. No matter what freaking camera angle I choose, it's just, you can't get everything, I guess, right? Maybe we'll get my finger getting smashed. Right about. Okay, I might need to stand up for this. All right, I'll use my right hand. Just double checking. Okay, it finally went down in there. That was a little bit weird. All right, fine. I'll stand up, see if I can get it to work like normal. I can't get it to lock in. Maybe that's normal. Doesn't quite want to drop in like the standard 8-rounders. We'll see how it goes. I'm going to try and wear my glasses today. Hopefully that'll help. Okay, first velocity was 2650 and it shows up low, which is fine. I just need to click calibrate. Bring that shot up to about the center. You'll see about how close I am to the target frame here with the Garand. That's hitting the point of aim. Shot marker did complain about that bottom left sensor, but I want to take one more shot because before I walk down there, I want to see if I need to move my target up a little bit. Don't want to hit my target frame. Okay, velocity 2654. I had written down 2600, so right there in the ballpark. I'll go check out this sensor that's giving us an alarm, and then we'll get back to it. Yeah, so these bullet holes look to be in just about the right spot, so we're not far from the target frame, but we'll be okay. We'll just roll with it. So far, we've got a 1.71 inch group going, so let's keep it going. Well, our clip ejected properly. That's good. And I'm afraid I was cheating up. Not totally surprised. I'm assuming this is, yeah, third, fourth, fifth shot. Wonder what it was without the first two. That was kind of like my initial side picture, and then this is the second one. Yeah, so the other three, once I settled back in, was 2.7. That's how we'll continue the group. I'll leave these three. Yeah, that bottom right sensor. See, the problem is I need to just get a nice set of audio cables and replace these because the cables that hook between the sensors and the little brain box down there have been left outside for what, a year and a half, 2 years. So not a huge surprise. All right, 5 more shots. This is a different clip. So let me see if this one, like normally it goes down about right here and you feel the charging handle or op rod, wow, whatever the hell they call that part, start to like shift, and then you give like one final little push down and get your thumb out of the way as quick as you can. Seems like this one requires a little pull back here. And then a little help getting that first one in. Probably just me being a moron. Okay, 5 more shots, let's make them good ones. Well, I creeped even higher that time, didn't I? Boy, those 4 went right in there, but this little guy, not so much. Yeah, I think this is all, I mean, this is 100% sight picture and being consistent on the sights. At first, like I mentioned earlier, I thought I was just getting a little bit chicken because I was close to the target frame, but later I think it was more about getting that front sight post perfectly centered in the peep sight. because I was using the kind of the bottom of the curve of the peep sight and the base of the front sight post to kind of index off of, and it ended up the top of my front sight post wasn't quite up to where it needed to be centered. So I think that's what was creeping my shots up, was me trying to find a way to consistently center my front sight post. Not too bad, that was fun. Let me chase down this brass. Just watching those velocities come in as I was shooting, I knew it was going to be good. Average 2651, standard deviation 9.9, extreme spread of 28. Vitavori always seems to do a nice job. All right, 10 shot group, 6.88 inches. Let's do best 8, 3.76 inches. So I think that's good, because, you know, 7-inch group doesn't sound too good, but I like the looks of that target. I like the way, let's see, if we took out those first two, it seems like the gun's trying to group, I guess is what I'm trying to get at. So pretty happy with that. All right, let me tidy up here, and we'll move on to the K31. All right, so this is my Swiss K31, and if you're not familiar with them, they're kind of peculiar because of this straight pull action. You just pull straight back and push straight forward. So the entire time I'm shooting these, I think that I'm about to take the entire bolt assembly straight through the eyeball. These guns freak me out. Pretty neat safety here on the back that you pull and turn. They're really known for being accurate rifles, especially with the surplus factory ammo that is sometimes available. These feed from a removable magazine. I've got 5 rounds in here right now. So let's start out with this and see what happens. Did it go all the way in? Please God, don't go flying through my head. So this is 41 grains of H4895, expecting about 2,525 feet per second, somewhere in that neighborhood. And we'll probably be shooting way, way, way high. All right, we're right in the neighborhood on velocity. That's good. Our shot went extremely high like we expected. We'll move that down into the center. And we're pretty close to the center of the target frame now, so that's good. All right, let's see if we can shoot a group. I guess first of all, probably ought to have a quick look at the brass, and it's perfect. And that first magazine's not looking too bad. I think my chronograph has lost its mind. So we're at 2.99 inches so far. Yeah, the chronograph's only picked up 3 shots, but that's okay. They're in the ballpark of what we expect. I'm liking this 2.99 inch group we got going on so far. So let's keep it going. Well, holy crap, folks. I will take that. Yeah, 3.31 inches. I will take that every time. I ought to load some of these up and go kill a deer with it next week. Average velocity was 25.33. So very close to that 25.25 I had written down to expect. Standard deviation 16.3. Good deal. I like seeing these reasonable standard deviations because a lot of times with these older military surplus rifles, I'm not shooting hot loads. I don't ever want to shoot hot loads. I want to shoot light loads. These things got metal butt plates, man. I ain't trying to feel that. Oh, no, and also, you know, for safety reasons, there's no reason to put, there we go. No reason to put unnecessary wear on the gun, right? So that often means a lot of empty case capacity or, you know, low load density. And it can be challenging to get consistent velocities or I think it's, you know, it's consistent ignition of your powder charge when you've got a lot of empty case. So these first two loads here, 30-06 and 7.5 by 55, really happy to see reasonable extreme spread numbers just because it makes me feel like I'm getting good consistent ignition. All right, let's bring in the Mosin. All right, so this old gal is my Russian Mosin. Also, you know, pretty common example. Not in the best shape, but a good shooter. Things might be kind of ugly today with the 308 bullets. I don't know. Shouldn't be too bad. Okay, first 5 shots are ready to go. We're at 43 grains of H4895. I'm expecting velocities around 2600. See what happens. That didn't pick up the velocity. Brass looks okay. Try and restart this lab radar. I've got it plugged in. It might be this USB cable getting a little bit janky. It was given a low battery alarm a minute ago. Let's see if that helps. Well, maybe it's too far from the muzzle and just not triggering, so I've moved it over a little bit closer. My chickens are freaking out. Be right back. All right, chickens are fine, and I added the microphone that I use with the suppressor to the lab radar. We'll see if we can get it to trigger. Don't really care all that much. Brass looks good and everything, but it'd be nice to get a number. There it is, 2592. Right where we were expecting. All right, first 5 shots looking good. Let's keep it going. Tell you what, that's better than I thought it was going to be. That's a 4.44 inch group, velocity 2636, standard deviation 25.0. So that one, like I was talking about earlier, and velocity consistency, I'd rather see a number a little bit better than that. But it's not awful, right? We had 79 feet per second of extreme spread. What I'm really on the lookout is those ones where you have hundreds of feet per second of extreme spread. It's usually a good clue that things aren't going like they should. All right, one more to go. Let's pull out the Chinese SKS. Okay, last up is our Chinese SKS. Still a pretty new gun to me. I've done a couple videos on it. It's my first foray into 7.62 by 39. Really, really neat gun. I love this gun. And it ended up having some pretty rough chamber pitting and stuff. So I've got it cleaned up, got it running well, but it's not shooting all that great. But it's not really all that important. Main goal was just to own one that was safe to shoot, that I could come out and have fun with. And it seems to be doing that no problem so far. But it really hasn't been that bad. Now I'm making it sound a lot worse than it is. All right, let's see how it does today. What are we shooting? We're shooting 24.5 grains of IMR 3031. And I'm expecting right about 1900 feet per second. And I need to move my front rest about a mile. Trigger's a little funky on this one. All right, first velocity 1860. Good. The last few velocities have dropped a little bit lower than our 1900 expectation, but that's totally okay. The gun's cycling well, ejecting brass just fine, and our bolt lock back. So what more could you ask for? All right, 5 more shots. What happened? Did shot marker miss a shot? Yeah, it looks like it might have missed one. That's kind of weird. All right, so our group is 6.01 inches. Our velocity was 1811 with standard deviation 31.7, extreme spread of 125. Not the best numbers and not the best group. This is kind of, this is kind of what we're seeing with the SKS, where like I think all of the other three groups we shot, if you kind of looked at it, there's some shots that looks like it was really trying to group. Like, wow, I actually had consistent side alignment there for a little bit and put together three shots real close to one another, that sort of deal. And maybe I'll find the same thing here whenever I look back during editing this thing. Is that 4, 9, 3? Yeah, maybe not. But I guess the point I'm making is that everything we've seen so far with the SKS has mainly just kind of been this shotgun pattern. Doesn't look like it's really trying to group tight at all. But like I said, doesn't really matter. It's a lot of fun to shoot. All of these guns are fun to shoot. If you don't have at least 1 or 2 old guns, you need to go out and get you some old guns. They're challenging to shoot, but at the same time, you don't have to take it too seriously. Thanks for a pretty relaxing day on the range, if you ask me. All right, I think that's it. Do we need to go back to the bench and talk things out? Did we talk enough about the press? Something occurred to me when we're talking about this, the M-Press with its tilt. Kind of reminds me of like the turret presses, where both my Redding T7 turret press and the Lyman turret press, you watch the turret and it's got tilt at the top of the stroke. And that's always something I wanted to look closer at and try to come up with some way to see if it matters or not. So this might be another press to maybe put into some future testing along with turret presses to investigate those weird movements, right? It's just, you get used to a rigid single stage press where nothing's weird's going on, nothing's moving. And then some of these other presses, you just kind of got to wonder, like, does that matter? I don't think it really matters, but I'd like to test and find out if I can come up with some sort of test to figure it out. So yeah, I think we'll just end it right here. Appreciate you guys joining me. Hope you enjoyed a little time on the range, shooting some of my favorite guns, and I'll see you guys next time.